recording, teaching this morning.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah. Makes such a difference.
What do you teach?
I teach English for speakers of other languages.
Oh,
So
cool.
it is cool. And, they come up with, it's really surprising what they come up with. And I don't know how in the world they learned certain things. Like the other day, this kindergartner said something, and I asked her something, and she said, blah, 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 not at this time. What? You're 5 years old and you're saying not at this time? Okay.
That's
Um,
cute.
it is. Yeah.
Cool. That's really cool. How old are the people that you teach? They're
Well,
kids
right
or
now
all
I'm
ages?
teaching, yeah, it is all ages. Right now it's elementary school. But I
Oh,
do have
cool.
some adults too.
Nice. That's awesome.
It is.
Cool. All right. Are you ready to get started?
I am.
All right. Perfect. We're going to start with a standing warm up. We might have a few other people jump in later, but that's all right. We can start
Oh,
anyways.
sure.
And
Yep.
we're just going to start first with the shoulders. So I want you to think about rolling these shoulders back like this and keeping the muscle tension on them the whole time. So not letting them just drop down, but really actively rolling them back. Nice. And we're going to go for about 5 more. How are you feeling today? How's your body feeling? And then we're going to go forward.
Yeah, it's feeling good. I've been doing a lot of stretching and
Nice.
really helping in isolating the areas where
You can relax.
it hurts or where it's tight.
That's
So
awesome. Good for you.
thank you.
All right, we're gonna let these hands hang heavy by our side and we're gonna rotate our chest from right to left. Now you are in control of this range, so if just a little bit of a rotation is what feels good, then do that. If it feels good to go further, then go ahead and do that. But I want you to find something that feels good for you. And your arms should be heavy, almost like they're just completely not attached, they're just hanging. Nice. And you're going to slowly start to bring that back to the center. And then we're going to move to the neutral position and we're going to go to the hips. And so you're making circles with the hips. And same thing, if you can increase this circle in all directions, go ahead and do it. If anything feels painful at all or uncomfortable, you can also make this circle much smaller. So pain and discomfort do not necessarily equal harm. But when we're doing a warm up, we don't want to get your body and your brain into that space just yet. So the way that we like to think about pain, and you can switch directions, is that there is a certain level of pain that is potentially anticipated to make progress. So when you think about any pain that you're having, if we can get your pain levels to stay the same, but the activities you can do to increase, then we're making progress. So we want to try to find that curve. In some cases, the pain may decrease, and that's great. But we never necessarily want to be increasing the activities and increasing the pain. Occasionally, we might do that. And then we're going to go to the ankle. So just pick up one foot and think about making circles on the ground. So occasionally, we might get into an adaptation range in these types of programs with a new fit. So if you were to work with us one-to-one, we tend to start to get to know you and your body and try to have you help make some adaptation. So whatever you're doing out of here, you can also think of it like that. If it's safe, controlled, and comfortable, you can go ahead and make adaptations to your body. So that means like you're placing more of a demand on it, and that might be a little bit more discomfort for a while, but then eventually with the right programming, it evens out and you can do more with either less pain or the same amount of pain, which is the goal. Because pain is very complex, so we can't necessarily solve it, but we can keep ourselves nice and strong to help encourage our bodies to do what they need to do in its environment. So to start today, once you've done both ankles, have you done both ankles with the circle? Okay, perfect. All right, so we're going to start with some posture stuff really quick. So I want you to think about this left foot first, and think about the outside of that left foot, the outside ankle bone becoming in line with the outside of your pinky toe. And that might feel a little bit strange at first, and that's okay.
Wait, can you say that again, please?
Sure. So the outside ankle bone here, I'm lining it up, and it could be an imaginary line, or I happen to have a line on this mat. And then I'm looking at that same line and lining up the outside of my pinky toe. So the outside of your ankle bone should match the same line the outside of your pinky toe is on. So your feet might feel like they're pigeon-toed a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I want you to take the other leg and mirror it. So it's about hip width apart, but it's mirrored. So we're looking at mechanically the ideal posture. If you don't normally stand in this posture, that's entirely fine. And we don't expect you to be able to make those changes. But I'm just going to show you how to get everything into alignment and do a little bit of an exercise with it. And so if you have back pain or any other kind of pain, like posture does not, if you have poor posture, it doesn't mean you're going to have more pain. But this is looking at things more from like a mechanical advantage standpoint. So if we put everything in a good positioning and then use it, how does that feel?
I just going to ask you a question. When I align the ankle bone and the toe, then the some of the rest of the foot comes up. Is that flat feet?
That's okay if the rest of the foot comes up. So what you can do is you can try to bring your feet a little bit closer together and see if you can get it to come back down, and you might not be able to, and that's okay.
Oh, okay. Huh.
Perfect. All right, now we're going to scan up to our hips. So I want you to think about your hips as a dish. A lot of times right now that dish is open towards the ground, so it's like from the side, it's like a lot of us have our butt out. So I want you to think about maybe if you were an animal with a tail and you're slightly tucking that in to be tucked underneath you. So it's like you're bringing your pelvis up or bringing that dish up, but it's a very slight tilt of the hips this way. Now, once you've done that, try to get a little bit more of a soft bend in your knees. So play with the knees a little bit. You can tick-tock the feet, you can wiggle the knees, bend the knees, but see if you can find something where you can hold this pelvic position, but your legs are not completely locked out. And it's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. The next thing I want you to do is come up to the area opposite your solar plexus. So kind of like where you would give somebody the Heimlich. I want you to think about if someone was pushing that and trying to get your back flat on the wall, you'd have to bring your ribs down a little bit and tuck your back flat on this imaginary wall behind you. And then I want you to take your hands and open them so your arm, the pit of your arm goes out towards the room. And as you do that, try and feel the shoulders come back. You can always reset and do it again. And then think about that head being very, very nice and tall. So to start, we're going to play with body weight shifting. So with our pelvis tucked, it's going to relieve some of the lower back if you have lower back issues, which I know you've mentioned before. Sometimes that can bother you. So this should feel good. If it doesn't feel good, just let me know. And then we're going to think about the belly button as our guide. So we're going to shift our belly button over so that it's in line with the inside of the left foot. And what you'll notice is all of your weight shifts onto that left foot. And then you're going to do the same thing, moving that belly button now to the inside of the right foot. And you're going to notice all your weight shifts onto that right foot. So we do this all the time in different variations as we move through life. We shift our center of support. But right now we're just bringing some awareness to it. So I want you to think about shifting your center of support over that left foot. So my belly button is in line with the inside of my left foot. And then I want you to think about picking up this right leg. And before you pick it up, I want you to use your hip to engage it. So That's using my hip to engage it. This is using my knee and my leg to engage it. So see if you can get some engagement from the hip and then put it back down on the ground, hip, put it back down on the ground. So this might feel really, really strange at first. I want you to try for 5 on each leg. How does that feel?
Yeah, it is different.
Cool.
Okay, I think my hips are stiff. But
That's okay. And that's something that we all might notice. So I've been practicing this. For the first time I did it, my hips felt really stiff and I felt like I couldn't get my leg off the ground. And that's okay if you feel that way. Just do your best to lift from the hip and then put the leg back down. Lift from the hip.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I was actually kind of lifting from the leg, but pretending it was the hip. Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, here we
Cool.
go. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yay.
Yeah.
All right, so once you've done 5 of those on each side, I'm going to explain that a little bit. So our hip joint is very, very strong compared to our knee joint. So if you were with us when we learned the deadlift, we went over the same concept, but it applies here too. So the hip, right, is something where you can use your hip joint to pick up a lot of weight. And as long as your back is in a good position, that's an easy thing to do. Now, if you've ever watched some Olympic lifters, they might have 400 pounds on their back. When they try to squat weight, their knees can't take that force, so they have to wrap them because the knee joint is not as strong as the hip joint. So what we're doing here is we're getting into an ideal posture, and then we're lifting the leg with the hip just to start to feel what that feels like, because with time, one thing that you can do is you can try to engage the hip a little bit more as you walk, and that's really going to help you to take some stress off the knees. So the next step is we're in this posture. You've learned how to engage the hip, and it's okay if you're holding on to something. So I want you to start now with your belly button shifting over to your right leg, and you're going to engage the hip on the left to pick the foot up. And I want you to try to squeeze your hamstring and your glute muscle. Squeeze it really tight, and then just completely release it and let gravity take your foot. And we're going to squeeze everything and then release. And I want you to do 5 of those on that side and then 5 on the other. And again, we're playing with our body's mechanical advantages here. So what we're doing is we're tightening these muscles to bring our leg back. And then when we release everything, it forces our leg to just fall forward with gravity. And we can eventually use that principle to walk forward. And with that, we're using a lot less energy and moving more efficiently. So it's just something that you can learn and play with once you get it. But it's nice to remember that gravity is something that can help us when we want to move forward. So we don't need to use these muscles as much to move forward, but we can use our bodies to help us more efficiently move in directions that we want to move.
Can you just do that walk again?
Yes, so we can do the walk together. Were you able to do the squeezing and then releasing?
No, I haven't quite got that.
Okay, I'll help you with that, and then we can do the walk together. So I want you to get into your ideal posture, quote unquote, starting from the feet and moving all the way up. And then once you feel like you're there, we can start by taking the belly button and shifting it over to the right leg. So our weight's on this right leg, and then you're going to use your hip to pick up the left leg. And I want you to think about squeezing your butt and your hamstring, squeezing it so the leg goes back, and then just releasing the muscle and letting gravity take your leg forward. Now, you might need to find a little bit of a softer bend in the standing leg for this to be comfortable. I want you to try to do that 5 times.
Okay, I'm going to have to practice that one.
That's okay. It takes some practice. So we'll do it on this side now. So we're going to shift our weight over to the left side. And then I'm using my hip to lift up this leg. And then I'm squeezing this muscle and this muscle. Squeezing them. I'm even squeezing the one in the front, and it forces my leg back a little bit. I can even help it go back there. And then when I release the muscles, I'm letting my leg come forward. And so you might need to make that happen at first, but eventually your goal is to just learn how to let go of that leg so that gravity takes it. And so to do the walk, once you've done 5 of those on each side, what we can do is we can do exactly that. So we're going to stand in our posture. You're going to shift your weight over that left leg. You're going to engage the hip to pick up the right leg. You're just going to squeeze those muscles and then just let gravity take that leg. And wherever it comes in front of you, you're going to put your foot down. And then you're going to switch to the other side. If balance is a challenge, you can also keep that foot on the ground with your toe up, squeezing the leg and then letting it slide through. And just do the best you can to start to feel that. It's something that takes a long time to really get used to and feel, because it's very, very different than how we use our bodies. All right, so we're going to play with the hip a little more, and we're going to go into the deadlift now. So for the deadlift exercise, you can get into whatever feels like a more normal posture for you, but I want you to find your feet to be like just a little bit more than hip width apart. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our hands in the back of our hand, like if we were to karate chop something. We're going to bring that into the crease of our body, wherever you would feel it if you were to bend forward. So you can even think about bending forward a little bit and trying to feel where you're going to feel that. And just rest your hands there. And then we're going to think about our knees next. So right now your knees may be locked out. I want you to think about having a nice little bend in them. They're kind of springy. They're not completely locked out. And what we're going to do is we're going to do an exercise that involves just the hip. So we're taking this hand and we're pushing into that crease so that our butt comes back and our chest comes down. And then once we feel like we've gone far enough, we're going to push the hips forward towards the wall and come up. Yes, so you're pushing those hips back like you're trying to close the car door with your butt and then driving them forward. Nice. So you should feel this in your hamstrings. If you're not feeling it there, that's okay. It just might take some work. It's a very weird sort of movement pattern, but it's a very useful pattern to learn in life because it's a really great way to eventually pick things up, which I can show you later on. You don't want to pick things up like this necessarily all the way on the ground, but if they were at a higher surface, you can use your hips as opposed to your knees. So I want you to focus on 5 more of those. Again, you can start with a little bend in the knee, but then the movement needs to come from the hip. So you're bringing that hip back, 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 and then you're driving the hip forward. Nice. Nice. We're going to have you do 3 more. Nice. Those look really good, Lauren.
Oh, thank you. They feel good. I think you've really explained that movement very well.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the step overs and the step unders. So to go over that one, I know you're good at this one too. We're thinking about an imaginary object here. So for me, I'm going to imagine a boulder, and I'm just going to think about stepping over and then stepping over. And let's just start with the stepping over. So a lot of people don't step over with both legs. They step over with that leg and then they drag this leg over. But the whole idea is that we're stepping over an object. So if an object was really there, you couldn't do that. So your object can be as small as a tennis ball that you're stepping over. It can be a giant boulder. It can be whatever you want, but the focus should be that you can do this comfortably. You don't feel off balance, and you feel like you can very easily step over whatever that object is, and you can always change it. So if you want to make it harder, make it a bigger object. And if you want to just focus on the pattern, you could make it a smaller object. And both of those are okay. All right, so we're going to do 2 more of those. Nice. Good. All right, now we're going to do the step under. So just like the step over, we're going to imagine we're stepping under something. So before you start, I'm going to show you. This one too is, I want you to do what feels good for you. So that could be, you know, you're imagining like kind of like you're about to sit in a chair, like right before you're about to sit in a chair. And this could be as low as you go to step under something, and that's okay. Or if you're really looking for something hard, you can go really, really low and try to step under something. And you can go anywhere in between, but you're imagining something is over your head and you're trying to step underneath it. And again, you can go just a teeny bit low, or you can go very low. That's up to you, but I want you to choose something that feels good to you. It doesn't hurt anything. You feel strong when you're doing it. Nice.
Can you demonstrate that one more time, please?
Yes. So I'm imagining that I'm going to step under this, right? So if this were here, I would have to step under it.
Oh, so you're kind of doing that, the lift motion.
So I don't have a way to prop that up permanently, but yeah, I'm trying to think about stepping under something.
And you're doing the lift position, right?
Well, I am using my hips, yes, to go back so that I can step under it. And so you're going to stand up at the top and then exactly bringing those hips back, stepping under and coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can play with that. You can think about sitting in a chair, which is more like a squat. So if you were to like start to sit in a chair, can you step under something like that? And that's okay too. That's using more of your knees, but that's totally a perfectly fine way to step under something as well. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling like I'm really using my hips and my legs, which is a good feeling.
Perfect. I like it.
I feel that the muscles are complaining a little just because they are working, you know. Oh, yeah.
Good. All right. So let's finish this off with a few more of those deadlifts. So you have some walls I can see. So one way that you can think about this is if I were to stand against the wall and take a step forward, maybe a little step forward, could I get my knees soft and bring my butt back to touch that wall? Well, this is a little too far, so I need to move closer to it. So can I bring my butt back until it touches the wall? And can you find a position where you're like, all right, that's really my maximum position. And then you're going to go for 3 tries and try to get towards that wall again with the butt. You want to really get that butt back towards the wall as opposed to bending the knees. The knees have a little bend in them, so I'll help you set up. So I would say maybe you take like a half step forward, and then you're going to use these hands in that crease. And I want you to think about starting with a bend in the knee, and then you're imagining that you're pushing, and you can even actively push these hips back, and then you're driving them forward. If that feels really easy, you can take a teeny step forward and try again. And then I find my point here for me, which is the maximum point. And you should feel it in the back of your legs. If you're not feeling it there, think about really driving that butt back like you need to close the car door with it. Nice. And you can go ahead and stop there. All right, how are you feeling?
Good. And I'm glad to say that felt easy. Yay! Finally.
Yay. Nice. Yes. So when you use this joint, it's a much easier thing to use, and it's a lot stronger. So the more you practice, then eventually we can use it to like do different tasks. Like I mentioned, picking something up. I wouldn't do that just yet because there's some more pieces to it. But once you feel really comfortable with it, you can pick up a lot more weight like this than you can like this.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna finish with some hip stuff. So I'm gonna use the wall here, and I'll show you first, and then you can decide where you want to go. You might have a piece of furniture you can use, but right now I'm holding onto the wall with my right hand, so I'm gonna lift up my left leg. I want you to think about that belly button, and so I'll show you. We can do it together, but I'm gonna bend this left leg, and then I'm going to imagine I'm making a circle with my hip. So I'm using my knee to point into a circle. So you can make big circles, which are very hard, or you can make little circles depending on how that feels. I only want you to do 2 on each side and just take note of how that feels. For some people, it's very hard to activate the hip in that whole range of motion. So whenever you're ready, we can start, or you might already be doing it.
Oh, yeah.
How does it feel?
It feels good. It's fine.
Okay, perfect.
Oh,
It doesn't hurt.
With you though about which the knee goes up, and then when
So it's like,
it goes back, does it.
so I'm imagining I'm drawing a circle like this. So if I have my knee here, I'm gonna start by bringing it back a little bit,
Yeah.
and bring it out to the side, and then I'm gonna start to bring it forward, and then down and back to its neutral position.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can feel that moving. Yeah.
So do just 2 of those on each side. So in that, we're having your hip joint move in its full range of motion.
Yeah.
Cool. Good. How do you feel?
Good.
All right, perfect. So we're going to finish with a little bit of stretching today. So we're just going to think about taking our right hand. For this one, you can put your hand on your side, or I like to take my other hand and just let it hang here, and it's going to slide down my leg, and that's okay. So this right hand I'm taking, and I'm just reaching towards the whatever's over there, and you can only go as far as you can go. I can go really far, but most people cannot go that far, and if it hurts, don't go that far. So like right here feels pretty good. I'm going to focus on 2 breaths here, in through the nose and out through the nose. In through the nose and out through the nose. And then I'm slowly going to start to come back to neutral. Shake everything out. Same thing on this side. And you should feel a stretch here in your arm. So I'm going to reach over and across, and I'm going to take 2 breaths in through the nose and out through the nose. In through the nose and out through the nose. And then I'm going to come back to neutral. And then you can reach both hands just straight up overhead, and just think about trying to reach to touch that sky, and take 1 breath in through the nose, out through the nose, and slowly start to come back down. Again, you can shake everything out. And then you can do a couple shoulder rolls, let's say 3 backwards ones, 3 forwards ones. And we want to do a couple hip circles, so we'll do 3 one direction and 3 the other. Really just focusing on checking in with our body here, shaking everything out. And if you want to stretch your neck, you're welcome to. Not everyone likes to do that, but if you do, you can bring your left ear to your left shoulder, and then start to slowly rotate your chin down towards your chest until your right ear connects to your right shoulder. And just play with that semicircle now, coming back down towards the chest Yes. You can go ahead and do that 4 or 5 times. If you feel an area that feels really tight, you can hang out there and breathe into it. So thinking about that breath and breathing into the area that feels tight and thinking about that breath. Nice. Good. All right, so the thing that I want you to think about this next week is just your pelvic position. So if you start to feel like, oh, my lower back is really bothering me, try and think maybe when you're doing the dishes or when you're brushing your teeth, if you can get this pelvis to be more aligned underneath you, and you do that by tilting your hips. So it's almost like I'm tucking this imaginary tail underneath me. And just do that while you're brushing your teeth or doing the dishes, and release it and tuck that tail and then release it. And it will feel really good here. And again, it's a very small movement, so it's hard for you to see it. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah.
Perfect. Cool. Do you need anything else from me today?
No, I've got to go.
Okay. Have a good day.
Helpful, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Okay, sounds good.
So much.